So there are lots of data, depending on the size of your network and how much activity. There's a lot of potential information that's transversing your network that may be on local systems connected to that network. You may have wireless connections too, but should also be logged and records connections monitored on those. And oftentimes, as an incident analyst or incident handler, or the person looking to detect signs of computer security incidents, you may not have direct access to the information that's on the individual hosts or systems or devices that are connected to your network. And the information that are on those specific systems may not be trustworthy. If they've been compromised and someone's gained unauthorized access to them, they may have tampered with some of the logs or the evidence on there. However, it's much more difficult for an intruder to gain access to the logs that are recording the information transversing the entire network. So network monitoring is oftentimes the best source of trying to identify the early signs or evidence that an attack has occurred, to use for both detection as well as later analysis if you're logging and recording that information. So monitoring, again, can not only help with identifying signs that you may have some suspicious activity going on in your network, identifying precursors or actual signs that you have a security incident on your network, but it can also help you with general situational awareness, and we'll talk about some of that in this session too. Just setting up awareness of what's typically expected on your networks to baseline what that normal activity should be. In addition, you can also use this to feed back into other areas of the incident management lifecycle, identifying new attacks, even if they are unsuccessful. Failed attempts to break into a system can be used to verify whether or not your security policies are effective, or lead to changes which could be preventing other types of attacks or incidents from occurring as you feed back into the prevent processes of the incident management lifecycle. So there's a wide variety of data sources that may be available to you, a lot of network sources, and you can get this information you need tools to collect that information. There may be additional tools to analyze and help sort through the volumes of the data that's available to you, and a lot of these tools are widely available. So there are a number of different documents and resources available to help you in developing a monitoring program. The National Institutes of Standard and Technology has a publication, special publication 800-137, that provides some guidance in doing security continuous monitoring. Even though this is designed for federal information systems, a lot of organizations in the private sector also use this as a baseline for setting up their monitoring programs. In the CERT division, our resilience management model has two different process areas, the monitoring area and incident management and control, which also provides some guidelines in how to set up an effective monitoring program and how this can feed in with some of the other process areas in incident management. So some of the things you need to consider are, in addition to having the tools to capture and log and record this information, you also need tools to analyze this, and the staff, the personnel, to actually look at the results of the monitoring and know how to analyze that and how to identify the things that are in there, separating the false positives from the indicators that might be truly signs of an incident occurring. The goal is to try to, again, as quickly identify or detect incidents that are occurring, or if they have already happened in the past, again, having these records for further analysis that you can dig down and answer the questions that you need to as far as identifying what may have occurred on the systems or networks affected. One of the ways in doing this is to have some knowledge about the activity, the normal type of baseline activity that's occurring on your network, so you can quickly identify the things that are out of the ordinary. And without having these baselines, it's much more difficult to determine whether or not something may be suspicious or not. In addition to monitoring the activity that has occurred, you'll also want to take note of the activities that are unsuccessful attempts to create an incident. These too can help verify that your security policies are working and give you some signs of things to look for in case maybe this particular attack may have failed, but then you can keep an eye on the sources of the attacks and see if maybe other network traffic or activity coming from that same session or from that same host or IP address may be used in other types of network connections that you are seeing within your monitoring logs. The good thing is that the storage costs are decreasing, and it's easy to log and keep a lot of this data available. However, with all this information, you need additional tools to help analyze that, and having that information available is better than not having the ability to record it in the first place. Again, if you cannot use this as part of your active detection processes, at least having the log and the information will be useful later for further incident analysis. There are lots of tools that are available, commercial products as well as open source products that can help you with the monitoring. Typically, they focus on several different areas. Some of the tools may just alert you to suspicious activity or anomalous activity or things that match certain patterns or rules that are known to be tied to different incident activity. Other tools will capture network session headers and data and give you a summary of the different connections from the different IP addresses, noting the time and date that they occurred. This is somewhat similar to, you might have a record of telephone calls where you know when the calls occurred, from what phone number to what phone number, and the duration of the call, but you really don't know what's happening in the conversation. If you want to find out more detail, you can do things like doing full packet captures, which will include all the content of those packets too. So for an email session, you not only just see that the email was sent from one system to another, but you can see the content of the email messages too. For web connections, you can see the content of what URL the user may have tried to go to, as well as any of the response that they received from the web server. Other types of tools may just gather and aggregate and create statistical information about the network activity and traffic, and this too can be useful in identifying anomalous activity. There are a number of different tools that will be useful for incident handling. Some of these may be part of your standard operating procedures, but there are certain tools that you as an incident analyst may be using that typically wouldn't be expected or even permitted on your normal enterprise systems because of security policies, and we'll talk about those in a moment. Some of the tools that are more frequently useful, if not by you, perhaps other people that you work in your network administrators, your network operations center, or if you have a security operations center, they may have security information and event management tools or systems, and these will aggregate data sources from a variety of different systems and sources and be able to set off alerts and help you with correlation and further analysis based on what those tools are designed to look for. You may also have intrusion detection or intrusion prevention systems, either network-based or perhaps even host-based intrusion detection systems. And these too can be configured to match and identify and alert on certain patterns of activity. And intrusion prevention systems can even take certain actions or courses to defend or prevent that particular activity from occurring. You may also have systems that help with managing the configurations of your systems and networks, and also alert to whether there have been unintentional or unauthorized changes in the configurations. It can alert you to these types of activities. Some other types of tools that might be useful for an incident analyst, but you wouldn't expect to see on a normal user's workstation, would be things like vulnerability scanners, network sniffers, network scanners to try to capture information about vulnerabilities that might exist in systems, trying to map out networks and identify what type of operating systems or even patch levels that might be running on those particular systems on the network. These are tools, again, that could be very useful. These are tools that hackers may use to try to break into systems. And so one of the thoughts is to have the defenders being aware of and using the same tools that an attacker might use to proactively identify vulnerabilities or configuration weaknesses or other problems before those issues are exploited by an attacker. You may also have other types of tools like forensics or digital media analysis tools to help gather additional information. Some of these tools can not only look for hidden files and information that might be in volatile memory, but they may also be able to identify or help you with information that may be encrypted and to try to identify more information based on that data on individual systems. And then there are all sorts of other tools that can be used as both as an attack tool or a tool to identify weaknesses, weak passwords, other tools that may identify exploits or malicious code or rootkits, and as we mentioned, tools that can identify other vulnerabilities or configuration weaknesses in the systems in your constituency. You might have antivirus tools either at the network level or on the host level. These too can help identify that there may be some malicious code that's propagating or has already been installed on your network or your systems. Some other things that might be useful as an incident analyst is if you have access to some of the administrative consoles so that you can verify the configuration settings on affected systems and detect and see if there's been any unauthorized or inadvertent changes on those systems. Some other things that may be useful as an incident analyst, not necessarily tools, but more along lines of equipment, is having an alternate way to access the internet in case your organization has particular filters or blocks or firewalls that would not permit connections to certain websites or to download certain binaries or software. As an incident analyst, you might need to access certain websites that the rest of your users may not have regular permission to see. So this would also be very useful as a resource to have at your disposal. And one other thing that might be useful is to have, if you can, have known images of clean systems, the different types of common operating systems used by your constituency, so you can have a baseline of what should be the way that the system should be set up, installed, configured at patch levels, and you can use these as a comparison and baseline for other systems that might be having an incident in your constituency. So as we've seen, having known baselines will be very useful in trying to identify where there are changes or something out of the ordinary or some deviation from what you expect to see on the systems or networks in your constituents. If there are some unauthorized or inadvertent changes, again, you can use this as a comparison point to analyze what has changed and then focus on how that change may have occurred later in your analysis. So having a system baseline can help you with system integrity. So some of the things to consider in setting up baselines for particular systems is having baselines of what the user accounts should be on the systems, which accounts have which privileges, if there are any other privilege level accounts, so you can identify when those privileges or accounts may have been changed. Typically, this is one of the things an intruder will do once they've compromised a system, and they'll try to set up some additional accounts that may be very hard to detect if you don't know what to expect. Baselining what types of services or processes typically would be running on that particular system, and open ports that would be available, and blocking or disabling those ports or services that are not part of your security policy. Knowing what is running in the memory and also on the disk. Again, spikes or deviations from what you normally should see in storage or the memory of a system can also identify anomalous behavior.